Hey everybody, ready to get to work? I'm not. Actually, I have been working. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. I have this podcast. It's the Household Filmmaking Podcast. It's on my YouTube channel. Usually I record that on my Zoom, but I thought I would try it as a live stream today. So, going to cover a few subjects while my cat chews on my thumb, and we'll see how it goes. So, uh, let's see. Number one subject. Okay, what subjects do I want to cover today? I've been thinking about this, and now that I'm in front of the camera, I've completely blanked out. I think I want to talk a little bit about what kind of work do you want to think about doing as a filmmaker, and also talk a little bit about what do you do when things get discouraging, because things do get discouraging, and maybe this is for me because it even when things are going great, sometimes I feel discouraged. Sometimes I feel like I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I know the kind of films I want to make, but and I have my way of making the films, but maybe I feel like there's not a lot of I don't know if anyone else is going to see things my way, I guess is what I'm saying. So, what do you do about that? How do you cope with that? And then maybe while I'm talking, I'll think of a third subject. Because usually on my filmmaking podcast, I do three subjects. And they usually do have to do with household filmmaking. The first thing that you want to do when you're making a film is you want to ask yourself, what kind of film is it important for me to make? You're going to spend a lot of time on your film. I'm just I hope I'm finishing up the Quantum Terror. I've still got a lot of visual effects to do, and Derek Hunt is creating the music for it and editing the sound. And man, is he doing an amazing job! I got to tell you, maybe I should talk about sound and film. Matter of fact, yeah, that'll be the third subject. I'm going to talk about sound and film, and maybe a little bit about David Lynch as well, who is a lot of people love his work, a lot of people hate his work, and I kind of understand both points of view. I personally love his work, but I can understand that's not for everybody. So get rid of this cat. Anyway, okay, so let's start out with what kind of films you want to make, though. I think a lot of people these days are so eager to make a film that maybe... Let's see if I can adjust this camera at all. Camera angles are hard to take care of. Oop. Hopefully I can edit this out. I don't know if anyone's watching the live stream right now. That was even worse. Let's see. Maybe. Okay. Anyway. Maybe live stream isn't the way to do this. But anyway, we're doing it now. So, yeah, you're going to spend probably 2 to 3 years of your life making a movie, and that might even be after you've spent a bunch of time conceptualizing it, working on the script. The pre-production phase, which is a lot of writing, a lot of working, auditioning, finding your casting crew, figuring out what you're going to do, how you're going to best spend your time. I personally did a lot of storyboards. That took a lot of time. I created a lot of pre-production stuff, and because I also built my own sets and created my own creatures with the help of Jenna Green, that was a huge investment in time. And then shooting the film is a whole can of worms in itself. You're spending a lot of money, probably money that you raised if you're doing a household film. And then you, after that, spend ages with it, editing, doing visual effects, color correcting, agonizing over the things that you wish you'd shot and didn't, or things that you thought were going to turn out a certain way while you were shooting them, but when you sat down and looked at them, they weren't that way at all. So how are you going to spend, what are you going to spend that kind of effort on? And I think a lot of people kind of take that for granted. They're so eager to just go and shoot something that, they just go with anything. And usually they want to try something that is like tongue-in-cheek, maybe a little comedic, maybe a little serious. And I suppose, that's fine, especially if it's your first film, you're playing it safe. Go ahead and do that. But by the time that 3 years is gone, by the time it's done, you put so much effort into it, you're going to wonder, who is this for? Of course it's for you. You made it for you, but you need an audience. You can't spend 3 years on your life on something that you're not going to see a return on. So my advice is to think very hard about what a movie is and what it does when you put it out into the world. That's the most important thing. Because I think there's a lot of big budget movies that don't take that into consideration. There are musicians that don't take that into consideration. I personally... Oh, sorry if you hear the trash truck behind me. That happens. When I created the Quantum Terror, I wanted to do something that was kind of like a mashup between Mulholland Drive and maybe Alien or The Thing. After the fact, I saw Stranger Things, and I thought, maybe that or even It could also qualify. But, mainly I was thinking, Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway meets Alien and The Thing type of deal. These kind of, enough of a narrative that it makes sense like an Alien movie or The Thing would make, but also enough of that dream logic where I could kind of be freed to express some things that at face value could be interpreted all sorts of different ways. But what I didn't want the movie to be was like what I see so much of these days, and I'm sorry if you're into this, and a lot of my friends are, but I have just had enough of nihilistic filmmaking. I absolutely despise it. I find it lazy, because in my mind, nihilism is about trying to make yourself more important than a thing by simply turning your nose up at it or crushing it underfoot. And, I think that, there have been some good stories told around nihilism, but I don't subscribe to nihilism. And even when the stories are well told, which a lot of them are, or whatever the art is, I find it repellent. And there's so much of it these days, I have to believe that other people are finding it repellent. And I don't want to spend my time trying to behave like I know better than other people by making my art about stepping on things that people love. The big example that comes to mind for me, and again, apologies to anyone who likes his work. I don't, but David Fincher. And also, in music, Nirvana. Both very larger than life talents. Very talented. They know what they're doing. They know how to get the response that they want to get. And they're good at it. Especially David Fincher is brilliant. I study his works, or I watch film analysis on his works. And he is brilliant at what he does, but his worldview, everything he does, is based around his worldview, which he said in an interview. He thinks everyone is like everybody's a pervert. You know, I'd argue that they're not. I don't think they are. I think a lot of things that get tacked on to people as perversions are just natural parts of being a human being, you know. But nihilism takes things like, you know, being curious or wanting to see stories that you can relate to, and then kind of saying that that's being voyeuristic. Or, you know, I saw a clip of David Fincher seeing a double rainbow, and he kind of made fun of the double rainbow guy, you know, in a very kind of condescending way, and I just didn't like it. It's just like, you know, rainbows are beautiful. Why do we have to mock, you know, I mean, the original double rainbow video, yeah, it's ridiculous, and everyone had a joke about it, but, you know, always finding the thing to mock or to crush. And I think I'm going to do a video at some point called Why We Have to Stop Pretending Alien 3 is a Good Movie, because that's a perfect example of taking this great story that has this literary narrative within the two scripts, Alien and Aliens, and then just saying, you're like, hey, you know what? You thought that this script would have like a nice trilogy conclusion and grow these characters more, but no, we're just going to crush them. We're just going to destroy everything. And we're going to tell you that it's a good thing. We're going to tell you that, you know, the fact that you expected it to be safe, which is, I think, is a misstep, or, you know, a misrepresentation in itself. The Aliens movies were never safe. That's what made them so suspenseful. That's what made them so satisfying, is seeing these characters go through things that aren't safe and figuring out a way to survive and grow. So to take all that and to just step on it, you know, and it was the same thing with, you know, listening to Nirvana. You know, Nirvana had some good songs, but when you listen to the albums overall, this is a guy who literally is singing songs about how he hates himself and wants to die. You know? So my point is, do you really want to dedicate your film, your life's work, to that message? Do you want to just make movies about destroying things that people cherish, or telling them that it has no meaning? I personally refuse to believe that these things have no meaning. Yes, everything ends. There's tragedy, there are horrors, and you can make movies about all of those things without trying to strip people of the things that are core things inside of them, and then tell them that they should be glad that you did it, that you stepped on that idea, or you tried to obliterate that value that they had. People go to the movies to maybe seek something within themselves. That's maybe one of the reasons that they do that. And I think that's the reason people make art. There's a misconception these days, and I think it's an ugly, destructive misconception to art and to the people making art, that you have to go and write your story or make your movie or draw your comic book or make your piece of music that's going to enlighten people, or is going to tell people, give people some important message that only you can deliver. That's narcissistic. Your art, your movie should be an act of discovery. And I'll talk a little bit about that more when we get on the subject of David Lynch. But what I'll say about that now is that, you know, you really shouldn't be assuming that you have a message to give people. And in the space of 3 years, you grow and evolve and learn about yourself. And if you start a movie with the idea that you're going to give the world this grand message, it's going to change everything, change their perspective, make them see things your way, you're going to find that in 3 years' time, you may not feel that way anymore. You may see yourself, if you have any kind of real self-awareness, or you know, have the will to grow and learn, you're going to find that you don't hold that worldview anymore, and that you were probably wrong about a lot of things. And then you're going to find yourself with a movie that at the end you're going to look at and go, wow, that's not, I don't want to say that anymore. Or, maybe you're stubborn and you don't want to admit to yourself that you were wrong. And then suddenly you've got a movie that, you know in your heart is not the right message, but you're going to put it out there anyway because of your pride. And, you're just, people are going to call you out on that. And then that movie is going to become a problem in your mind. And it may lead to an inferior movie. So my suggestion is, when you go to make a movie about something that matters to you. Make a movie about something you feel inside, but don't presume that those things are correct and they're an important message that you have to deliver to people, because ultimately what you're saying is you know better than those people. You're smarter than that audience. You're giving them something that they need, and that you're just the guy to deliver. And again, that's egocentric, that's narcissistic. I believe it's wrong. We all have things to say, but the things we say should be more about our own evolution, to acknowledge our own faults, and also to try and bring value to our lives, bring a little bit more value, to maybe try and justify the things that we love. But you have to do it in such a way that the audience sees your journey, sees your evolution, not revolution. God, revolution. Don't get me started. I hate that word. Revolution and resistance. It's of all the insufferable nonsense. The audience should be able to see your journey and say to themselves, I can relate to that journey because I'm on a similar journey myself. And then I think the audience should be able to take away what they need from that journey. Not what you think they need, but what they need. And leave the rest. Or maybe look at your journey and see the flaws in you. And they can take those flaws and then use them to improve themselves. But ultimately, I don't know. I make movies that I want people to talk about afterwards. And I don't mean like word of mouth. We've got to spread the word about this movie because we love it so much. I mean, after the credits roll and, it's, if they were in a theater, which I don't think for my movies that's going to happen anytime soon, but it may later. But, they may go to coffee afterwards and have a discussion about what they thought it meant. And they'd enjoy that discussion, and they'd maybe have a little more insight within themselves. But again, I think there's too many movies these days. They set out to obliterate what they presume the audience believes about themselves and replace it with the message that they think is the best message or the best ideology or the best worldview. And we're never going to make good art that way. We're never going to produce things that are going to change how people perceive themselves or change how people perceive art. So, and of course I'm not saying don't speak up about things that you believe in, but don't preach them. Take the audience on the journey with you that brought you to see things the way that you do. And leave room in that story for growth, for your own personal growth, for the story to grow on its own. Because I guarantee you, The Quantum Terror is not the movie now that it started out to be. Not by a long shot. It is, and I got to tell you, this movie is going to be weird. And it's going to wear its budget on its sleeve, for sure. But if I may be so bold, I think it's going to be really good. I think people are going to like it. Because watching it back, and I just watched, I won't say it's the locked edit, but it's damn near close to the locked edit. that movie is, I enjoyed watching it, and I saw it as if I was a viewer on my own. Like I hadn't made the film. I was watching it. And I enjoyed it, and I learned something about myself. Some of it was very troubling. But I realized that, like a dream, like I talked about that dream logic, all the characters were me. They were all aspects of myself, aspects of where I've been, both the good places and the bad places, and I'm talking about in my mind and in my heart. They've kind of Jungian. I'm a very big fan of Carl Jung, not so much Freud. But, the female characters, I think, kind of fell into the category of what's called, in Jungian terms, Black Madonna. And, there was stuff about the id and the mirror self in there, or the shadow self. There were the weakest points in my life and some of the strongest points in my life. So, I'm really kind of excited and amazed about it. So I really hope that it turns out well and it finds its audience, because I did shoot it on a 7D. It is very low budget. I kind of like the idea of shooting on a 7D, because it's kind of like, if it's the 1960s, it's like shooting on 8mm film or 16mm film. Seeing how that turns out. So anyway, that's about all I have to say at the moment. Really be careful about what you're going to dedicate your time to, and understand that being the artist does not make you an arbiter of wisdom, and your film should not presume to be that. Your job is to take the audience on a journey, entertain them, give them something they can relate to. All that stuff is within you, but you have to let it come out. You have to get out of its way. Drop your ego. Really, drop your ego out of the equation, because that's going to prevent you from making the best possible movie you can make. And find the things within the movie as you're making it that are going to be the best thing to present. So moving on to subject number 2, getting discouraged. My God. Again, I'm going to relate this to my journey with the quantum terror, but I've come a long way from making this film. I got an investor, Doug Mayfield, who has been a wonderful producer. And I have my Indiegogo supporters who I think about every day, and really try to, they've waited so long for this movie, so I'm really trying to give them a movie that, they'll be happy they waited for and satisfied that they pledged money to and were a part of. And I sold my car, and I used my own money. I gave up a lot. And then at the end of it, I came back to California from Texas, and, that was a big move, and I had to downsize a lot from my 2-story house with a loft studio space, a garage, and a backyard to work in, to 2-bedroom apartment. And all these crazy things happened at once. I got to work for, kind of a lifelong dream, Studio ADI, Oscar-winning practical effects company in California. Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. are amazing guys. They've done the best they can to take good care of me to the capacity that they can while working for them. But it hasn't been a full-time job. It's a part-time job. And I've had to pull in a lot of odd jobs to kind of keep things going and afloat. And it's pulled me in a lot of different directions. and taking me away from the film. And then my computer died, and fortunately Derek Hunt, my sound guy, helped me to build a new computer, and also gave me a lot of computer parts for free, which was very good of him. So all this support all around me and all these amazing things happening, but it's like it pulls you in different directions, and you kind of, sometimes it's hard to see the course. It's hard to keep things going in a straight line. There's a lot of things pulling you away, a lot of temptation, a lot of things that look like they might be greener pastures that will distract you, and a lot of doubt comes with that along the way. I can't say that I have any advice that's going to help you. The general platitudes: work hard, work harder. And I can't even say if you're gonna make it. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Whatever that means. I personally want to be successful. I want to be able to provide for my family and continue to make movies. And I know there are people who want to see me succeed, otherwise they wouldn't be helping me. They believe in what I'm doing. But along the way, you start to wonder, is this going to come to anything? Will I get to make another movie? Or will I go back to sweeping popcorn out from under theater seats at the AMC as a night job to make ends meet? I don't have any answers for that, but all I can say is that if you don't try your hardest and then try even harder than that, you're definitely not going to make it. So you have to find out, are you going to be happy doing this? Or are you going to be happy? Are you going to be able to be happy if you don't do this? You may decide that, I don't need this to be happy, or I can do something else and be happy. I think that, if that's you and you're able to do it, just go ahead and do it, because, I don't think filmmaking is exactly the path to happiness until you actually find success. You love doing it while you're doing it, but it's so much money and it's so much work, and you get, I gotta say, the reason that I do it, that I still do it, is because I am not good at anything else. I mean, really. There are certain things that I can do well, but, they're like being an usher at AMC, or, I'm all right at social media for a part-time job, but it's not a career. I am good at making films the way I make films. No one else can make films the way that I make them. And I happen to think that I do good work. But that's not to say that people are going to want it. So, I'm going to keep working to improve, and, and sometimes I'm going to be miserable doing it, but I have to do it. Yeah. And I know, it's like part of it, when I say I have to do it, part of it is passion. And part of it is, if this doesn't work, then nothing else is going to work. And that's not going to be a good thing for me, especially as I get older, So, if this is truly the only thing that you can do, then, you are going to have to work your ass off. And I'll never forget this. I was at, it's a gentleman named Will Scoville did this concert called the Overcome Tour. I think it was meant to be a tour, but he started with a concert, but he called it tour. But he had these inspirational speakers come in, and I remember I was commissioned to come and do a painting live on the stage while these speakers performed music and told of their experience. And there was a stunt woman there called Dana He, and really was taken with her. She was, because she was kind of no nonsense as well. I mean, she was there to be a motivational speaker, but at the same time, she told a story about how she was training in martial arts, and I can't remember what she's doing, a kick or something like that. She wasn't hitting the bag right. And her, Asian instructor, I can't remember, I think it might have been Japanese, or it might have been Taekwondo. I think she said she took Taekwondo. But she, her instructor said to her, you're not hitting bag hard enough, something like that. And she said, look, I'm doing the best that I can. And he said to her, your best is not good enough. Look all around you. Everybody in here is doing their best. If you want to be a champion, you have to do better than your best. I heard that. I was like, wow, you know what? That's exactly what I'm up against. And that's not always, it's not always fun. People, Ray Bradbury always said, do what you love and love what you do. Which I think is good advice. I love that he said that. But love is something that sometimes you have to suffer for. Otherwise, it wouldn't be love. If at the first sign of suffering you dropped it, then obviously you didn't love it. And there are times you're going to suffer. You're gonna wonder where you're gonna get the money for next month's rent. You're gonna, feel miserable and depressed because things are not working out the way you wanted, or you're going to feel embarrassed because the thing you said you could do is suddenly, like, right in front of everybody falling apart. These are all things that are going to happen. But if you're truly the person for the job, truly the person that nobody else can do it, then, you have to keep going. Even if you're miserable for a time, it will get better, And I think it's good, Oscar Wilde said, experience is the name we give our mistakes. As I'm paraphrasing that quote. But, these things that happen to you, these ways that you suffer, these terrible times where it just feels like you can't do it anymore and you're just so miserable, those are where people quit. And if you're going to succeed, you're going to have to be the person that keeps slogging through that while everybody else is dropping like flies, because that's how you get to be last man standing or last woman standing. And it's, you can't say things like, well, I've paid my dues, now these wonderful things are supposed to happen. It's, after the next success, I don't think any movie, any project gets any easier after the last one. You take your experience with you and you do a better job each time, and hopefully you make more money. But there's no such thing as that, finally paying your dues and then you've got to, you can write your own ticket. Or maybe you can, hire the best people and that sort of thing. But, for most of us, we're not that lucky, but we can be successful. And, got to be tough. So, moving on to number 3, because I don't think that was inspirational. Was that inspiration? No, I don't think that was inspirational. I think that was maybe that was my way of saying to people, hey, drop out so I can get ahead. No, I want everybody to succeed, and I think there's room for everybody to succeed who really cares passionately enough about it to put themselves through the ringer for it. So let's talk about something a little more fun, which is do I want to talk about David Lynch specifically, or do I want to talk? I want to talk about we'll kind of bounce this around between David Lynch, audio, and Dream Logic, because I recently rewatched Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. God, brilliant movie. very dream logic oriented. And I still haven't seen the Showtime third season of Twin Peaks. I'm really bummed about that. I'm hoping they put that on Netflix soon, because I don't have money to go out and buy the DVD set or whatever. But I want to talk about audio, because and how that affects kind of the mood of everything. And David Lynch uses a lot of audio, a lot of ambient sounds. He uses a lot of, he's got his kind of beatnik music. He uses a lot of songs. He uses, these things to create tension, to create intrigue, to create mystery, where if you were to just watch the footage without them, it wouldn't be as impactful. I'm really excited to be working with Derek Hunt on the Quantum Terror, because he really understands these things. He's played me some amazing music. So the mystery and the ambiance, I'll give you an example. If you were to just kind of zoom the camera in on somebody and just have them stare off camera at somebody else, and then show another person, like a reverse shot staring back at them, it would kind of be stupid. But if you add in music and ambiance, it adds tension. And so, so much of my filmmaking is kind of left to chance while I'm editing. I'm finding the right cut, but I'm also trusting, and I don't do temp music. I don't like the idea of temp music. I think that sometimes I edit to beats. I count beats in my head as I'm editing. But I feel like when I hand the music off to Derek, at least for this project, the movie's going to become his movie in a way. It's almost like he's kind of making the movie all over again in sound, and that sound is going to accompany my movie, or there may be silent moments, sort of thing. But music and sounds tell the story in a movie as much as anything else. And that's why, it's like you watch the silent era of film, and there's brilliant stuff. I mean, there are silent films that I enjoy, and I enjoy watching Buster Keaton and the classics like Metropolis and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. But even then you're getting, people will take those movies and like create new soundtracks for them. Dracula wasn't silent, but Dracula didn't come with a film score when it originally came out, the Bela Lugosi version. So for the anniversary, they got Philip Glass to come in and create a beautiful violin cello score with the Kronos Quintet that I absolutely love. I bought the soundtrack. I play it in my car when I'm trying to kind of get myself in the mood for some spooky scene that I have to write or something like that. By the way, listening to music, different soundtracks or different kinds of music while you're writing or creating, that seeps into your head, and it helps you to find the thing within yourself that translates into the art that is your film. But I don't recommend just kind of throwing in a temp score like, ooh, it's like I really like Indiana Jones and I want an Indiana Jones scene, so I'm going to throw in this Indiana Jones music at part of the temp score and then give it to my composer and say, make it sound like this, but not this. And then you're hobbling your composer's ability to do their art. And I think, and this might not be the case all the time, and by the way, I recommend there's a video about it from on YouTube from I'm trying to think of the name of the Every Frame a Painting. Look up the channel Every Frame a Painting, and then look up there's a video, it's one of the later videos on that person's feeling about temp music. Now, Ryan Conley from Film Right disagrees with that. He loves putting in temp music. So everybody's going to have a different opinion about it. So don't take this as, face value. But my feeling on it is that your composer is going to have to come in and watch the movie and read the script, and they're going to take that within themselves and they're going to turn that into how they want to tell the story. And you work with them to make sure that they're on the right track, that they're not going vastly far afield. But, you know, it's like I'm going to be having discussions with my composer about, you know, what the more surreal dream logic scenes are going to be and what I was trying to achieve with them, and what the more straightforward scenes are going to be and what I was trying to achieve with that. And, you know, and, and hope that, I mean, I've already heard things that he's creating and they're beautiful. I think they're going to work really well. And I think they've kind of influenced how I'm doing the final edit of my film. But, you know, I want him to be able to take what I tell him, and I want him to imbibe that and then give real thought to what it means to him, how it relates to his own experiences as a, you know, as a human being, and then as a musician translate that into music that he feels satisfied expresses that. And I think that's how you get a, you know, very beautiful work of art. So, you know, I hope that makes sense. Again, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before about making a movie that takes your audience on a journey with you rather than trying to create something that just sends a message, you know, like the mafia. Gonna send a message. Anyway, I gotta inject more humor into these things. I gotta figure out, like, I do all sorts of voices and characters, and, you know, I never think to, like, how I'm gonna inject those into my tutorials and my podcast. But anyway, for those of you who were expecting editing today or VFX, I apologize, but I hope as filmmakers this gave you something to think about. Definitely come back. I'm going to be doing a lot more VFX stuff very soon. We're going to be working with Photoshop, After Effects, and Premiere to create some composite shots and, you know, enhance our world. That's going to be for the Quantum Terror, and hopefully soon for Girl in the Window, which I recently did a live stream about that old thing that I hope that is going to turn into a groovy little sci-fi short film at some point. But yeah, so give me your thoughts in the comments, and there's also a donation button down there if you find my tutorials and live streams helpful or inspiring. I think next time I'm going to do the podcast thing, just do that pre-recorded. I'll get better audio and you don't have to look up this face so much anymore. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for hanging out with me. I feel better. I hope you do too. And yeah, what are you waiting for? Get to work.